Well, few things that I'm learning that surprise me. I didn't know before, and I'm just sharing with you. Some of these things I knew a little bit about maybe, but many things that I'm learning about the Cold War as I go day by day and look at individual personalities, um, and how it impacts us today. It's very important. But there's a lot to learn and discover, and I want to share it with you. Um, and so First, I want to begin talking about somebody who was an influencer. Um, we've talked about people who were in the government, U.S. government, the 5,000 or so communists, communist sympathizers, even outright Soviet agents in our government during World War II. In fact, one writer I've read said the Soviet Union was the actual winner of World War II because like our Lend Lease program, we gave them tons of stuff, money, equipment, and they even acknowledged at some point that they used that equipment to subjugate Eastern Europe because when the war was over, there was plenty of equipment left over, jeeps and all kinds of different stuff, and millions of dollars, and it was used by the Soviets to spread their influence. Basically, the West, particularly America and Britain, helped continue the Cold War much longer than it had to go on. The communist economy is simply incapable of producing anything, and it's doomed. A communist economy, a centrally planned economy, is doomed to be a failed economy. But we kept them going. It started when they had a big and plus we talk about them stealing our nuclear secrets. We were sending them nuclear secrets. Major Jordan's diaries, who was a guy who was a facilitator, who was doing Harry Hopkins, FDR's assistance, bidding and helping the Soviet Union stay in the battle against Germany. He said that he saw documents coming over that about the atom bomb, and so we were helping them. We had agents in our government who were working for Stalin, and we were helping the Soviets beat Hitler. But then after that, we still had given them so much that they could use to subjugate peoples of the world. And understand communism, whatever whatever you're reading, whatever you believe, whatever oppression that you've experienced or you're reading about, communism is not the answer. It is a worse type of slavery. History has proven this. Well, let's take it up today with a character from the Cold War who's very interesting. Before I heard of learning this stuff, he was one of my favorites. Dalton Trumbo. Now, he was a screenwriter, communist, a subversive. He was a propagandist, and he was a member of the famous and infamous Hollywood 10. Now, he wrote the book Johnny Got His Gun, which is a very pacifist anti-war novel in 1939. Now, he wrote it during the time that Hitler and the Soviet Union were allies. So he did not want America to get involved in a conflict against his quote mother country. So that was the purpose. Now, it's a great book. I read it in high school. It's a great anti-war novel. It was popular during the Vietnam War, about a quadruple amputee who's also deaf, mute, and blind. And it just talks about what he's thinking and what's done to him and everything. And it was designed to keep people from wanting, it was anti-war. You can imagine that during Vietnam. But when the Hitler turned on the Soviets and the Soviet Union was now fighting Hitler, he changed his reverse course. He did what he was told. He followed the party line. He became fanatically pro-war. We got to fight the Nazis, got to fight the fascists. Just like some of our newsmen, famous newsmen like Edward R. Murrow, and you think of Walter Cronkite. These guys are violently, stay out of the war until it's a war against the Soviet Union. Then we've got to do something. Trumbo tried to withdraw his book from circulation. Bookstores were ordered to send their copies back to the publisher. Fans wrote to Trumbo requesting copies of the book. He turned their names in to the FBI as fascist sympathizers. Wow. So, anyway, he he was a member of the Communist Party throughout the 40s and 50s. He did not approve of free speech, as most communists don't. He wrote that, or whenever a book or film or play is produced, it was just harmful to the best interest of the working class. That work and its author should and must be attacked in the sharpest possible terms. He called Stalin one of the democratic leaders of the world. Um, and he moved to prevent a film being made that was based on Leon Trotsky's biography of the Soviet leader, which was negative. When fellow communist screenwriter Albert Maltz published a defense of artistic freedom, arguing that literature should not be judged solely on the politics of its author, Trumbo participated in an inquisition, putting Marx down for uh, advocating free speech and the possibility that Stalin could be criticized. So he was brought before, Maltz was even brought before the House of Un-American Activities. He went to jail for refusing to testify. So he says that was nothing compared to what he was done to him by the Communist Party. So Dalton Trumbo, one other author says Dalton Trumbo was part of the savage Communist Party inquisition against the director Robert Rossen in 1949 because of Rossen's film All the King's Men. Party headquarters in New York thought this film was too much an attack on one man rule, as an example, Stalin. The confrontation with his Hollywood inquisitors over the nature of his art drove Rossen out of the Communist Party. So long before the blacklist, there was Hollywood Communist Red List. In The Worker, Trumbo boasted that comrades had prevented the production of Hollywood films based on books banned by Stalin, including great book Arthur Kessler's Darkness at Noon, which you should read, and Viktor Kravchenko's I Chose Freedom, which you should read. When Hollywood screenwriter Richard Macaulay submitted a piece to Screenwriter magazine opposing left-wing censorship, Trumbo, who was the magazine's editor, rejected the piece, denouncing the inalienable right of free speech. He was totally against free speech. Trumbo supposedly was the ghostwriter of Secretary of State Edward Stettinius's report to the nation on 1945, founding the Conference of the United Nations, where Alger Hiss presided as Secretary General, another Soviet agent. In 1946, he posted a CPUSA meeting allegedly to discuss putting communist propaganda in the movies. So, he was a classic case. He had movie writing credits for movies like Spartacus and Exodus. I mean, these are classic Hollywood movies, and he's been defended in film. They've made films about him, making him look like a hero. Um, and But it's been proven without a question that this tremendous influencer, and there was many of them in Hollywood, and when you watch these classic movies that you probably grew up with, if you're an older person, and you probably thought they were excellent, watch them again. But now look at what they're trying to tell you. Dalton Trumbo was a tremendous influencer. And yet he was a communist, violently opposed to the U.S., violently opposed to our concept of free speech, as the Marxists today are. You've got to watch out for them. Now, the Hollywood 10 was a set of Hollywood screenwriters, directors, and producers who refused to testify before Congress as to whether or not they had any ties to communism. They were Alva Bessie, Herbert Biberman, Lester Cole, Edward Dmytryk, Ring Lardner, John Howard Lawson, Albert Maltz, Samuel Ornitz, Adrian Scott, and Dalton Trumbo. And several of them owing to Stalin defining fascism as anything that opposes communism after World War II, even went so far as to compare the attempts at investigating whether they were communists to Nazi Germany, and they were blacklisted. And we'll probably discuss a few of these people as time goes by, because they did have an impact on our culture, and that's where you get the new left in the 50s. This makes it possible in the 60s, and what you have today in the Democratic Party. So we'll stop about Dalton Trumbo there, and let's jump into a timeline event. On July 11th, 1945, the Soviet Union agreed to hand over civilian and military control of West Berlin to British and U.S. forces. So now Berlin is divided. Okay, and just to go over that, the London Protocol of 1944 and the Potsdam Agreement established the legal framework for the occupation of Germany. Um, and Germany would be formally administered under the administration of four allies: the United States, United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and France, until a German government acceptable to all parties could be established. So the territory of Germany was, was changed and reduced. Um, and I want to, and this is all stuff I'm getting off the internet that's very superficial. You don't have to dig really deep to find this stuff out. It was supposed to be a temporary administrative nature, all parties declaring that Germany and Berlin would soon be reunited. However, that didn't happen until what, 1990? However, as the relations between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union soured and the Cold War began, the joint administration of Germany and Berlin broke down. Soon, Soviet occupied Berlin and Western occupied Berlin had separate city administrations. In 1948, we will get to the Berlin blockade, but for now, let's just leave it at that. And you can see that you have a divided Germany, part of it controlled by communists, part of it controlled by the West, and then we'll go from there. So it's an important event. So anyway, I just hope you'll study the Cold War and look. And there's lots of really good videos on YouTube about the Cold War. Really good speakers and well organized and quality graphics. So encouraging you to look around and see if you can, if you are interested in this subject, because this these things that I'm talking about have a direct impact on what we are going through today. This divided nation, the United States, is going through today. And I will show you, I will draw that thread together so you can see as time goes by. All right. And I thank you. And look up Dalton Trumbo. You'll be interested to see what the different people will say. That leftists, communists will say one thing. He's a hero. And those who love freedom on the other side will say something different. And you'll be amazed at how different it is. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.